Well, the U.S. just removed the how many drinks number from its dietary guidelines. If you remember, it used to be 2 a day for men, 1 for women. Well, that's changed. Hey, and Idaho? Yes, Idaho's wine industry is stacking up medals, getting some momentum. There's a whole Chihuahua story there. Yes, Idaho. Have we talked about wine scores in the past few weeks? I don't know. Let's hear from a master of wine, shall we? Victoria's wine country just took a brutal hit from brush fires. The damage goes beyond violence. It's everything, and it's unfortunate. So happy stories, sad stories, all that and more on this week's episode of This Week Uncorked. Well, hello and welcome to episode 82 of This Week Uncorked for Monday, February 9th, 2026. I'm Brett Martin from Cork and Journey, and if you're not familiar with Cork and Journey, well, we are your number one source for corkage information, as well as winery reviews, restaurant reviews, regional wine guides, and so much more. And check out this new little backdrop I got. I'm kind of liking it. I hope you guys like it. Anyway, with that, let's get right on into this week's wine news. All right, over at Wine Searcher W, Blake Gray, wine writer extraordinaire, talks about the new U.S. dietary guidelines that came out last week about how much alcohol is safe to drink. And if you remember, there was an entire craziness around this under the Biden administration. They basically were going to come out and say, no alcohol is safe. You shouldn't drink any alcohol. So the whole 2 drinks for men, 1 for women per day, maximum you should have, which is kind of a worldwide thing that people talk about. Well, the U.S. just got rid of that entirely. And so from the article, the new guidelines aren't exactly pro-wine, as they say. Consume less alcohol is better for overall health. This isn't exactly Paul's recommendation to Timothy in the Bible to use a little wine for thy stomach's sake and thine often infirmities. It falls short of a blanket statement like no level of consumption is safe that the Biden administration tried to impose for wineries, brewers, and distillers. In this case, the absence of bad news can count as good news. I count it as good news. We were kind of headed down a kind of neo-prohibitionist bent here. You know, we talk about it all the time. Oh, a little bit of alcohol can be beneficial, a little bit of alcohol can be bad. You know, it's clear that a lot of alcohol is really unhealthy, but in moderation, maybe we'll cling on to it's still good. Evidently, so this administration has decided to stay with this consume less alcohol for better overall health. That is the statement. And worth reading the entire article. There's some dozies in there, and it's a well-written piece, as he always does. All right, and moving on, I've never done this one before, but Eat, SCV, which is a local Idaho, I think probably TV station, I don't know, has an article by Lauren Brooks arguing that Idaho's wine scene is gaining real momentum with medals, expanding vineyard, tasting rooms, tourism, on and on and on. And it's the Snake River Valley AVA is really kind of the big one that they're talking about here. And I got a right here. Okay. This is a wine called Cinder. So I did some research because Tina and I are actually going to head up to Idaho this summer and check out the Snake River AVA. And this is a Syrah from Cinder. I got a 22 and 23. Ordered it up, kind of wanted to check it out before we went to the region. It's supposed to be good. I haven't had it yet. But when I do, I'll put it on the show. We'll talk about it. But from the article, Idaho benefits from strong diurnal shifts. Hot sunlit days followed by cool nights, which is the definition of a diurnal shift, with low summer rainfall during the growing seasons. These conditions help grapes ripen while retaining acidity, a balance that winemakers prize. Across the state, soils vary from volcanic to glacial deposits to alluvial river flats, and vineyards sit at elevations ranging from valley floors to slopes above 2,000 feet. The result is a patchwork of microclimates that allow growers to cultivate a wide spectrum of varieties. On the white side, Riesling leads in acreage, complemented by Chardonnay and Viognier. Producers are also testing grapes like Albarino and Verdejo For reds, Merlot is widely planted with Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Tempranillo, and Cab Franc forming the backbone of many blends. I don't know. Has anybody been there? Has anybody tried the wines? Maybe I'll crack this one tonight. I don't know, but looking forward to checking it out. Why not? All right. And with that, over at Wine Searcher, Constantine Baum is asking the question, what's the point of points? And if you aren't familiar with Constantine Baum, he's a master of wine, one of my favorite YouTube podcasters on wine, and didn't even know he was starting to write for Wine Searcher. But glad to see him over there. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, do so. He does some really good stuff. Funny guy as well. But, he's kind of tackling this whole thing on points. And he rates his on the 100-point scale. We talk about this 100-point scale over and over again. This is a really, really, really long, really in-depth article. Probably one of the better breakdowns of why points work, why they're important, why they don't work, why they're ridiculous, all those kind of things lumped into one. So quickly from the article, wine tasting is inherently subjective and situational. Mood, food, company, temperature, and timing all shape perception. Yet a final score implies fixed objective truth. The commercial weight attached to tiny numerical differences, a 94 versus a 95, for example, far exceeds any meaningful sensory distinction. The numbers suggest a level of precision that the experience cannot support. I totally agree with him. This problem is compounded by differing scoring philosophies. Some critics use the scale expansively, others cluster tightly. A 92 from one critic may align with a 95 from another, yet the market rarely adjusts for these differences. Context is stripped away as the number circulates. And this goes on and on. He actually has got a complete chart in here where he takes Jancis Robinson, Suckling, Vinous, and it's really a 15-point score. It kind of goes from like 85 to 100. That's it. You could do a 20-point, which, Jancis does, but it's really interesting. And again, how can you be that, you get a little precise? What is your difference and how are they rated? And anyway, we'll never solve this. Points are really important. They're very important. They sell wine. That's why they're important, because a nice score from a good critic can really, really make a winery, make a vintage. We all know it. We all know it to be the case. And anyway, with that, let's wrap up with a kind of a downer story. Maybe I should have started with this one, but Oliver Stiles, again, over at Wine Searchers, reporting that out-of-control brush fires in Victoria, Australia, basically have torn through vineyard land, hit multiple wineries. They've destroyed acreage, significant stored inventory. From the article, a series of wildfires in the Australian state of Victoria have ripped through vineyards and wineries in the state, devastating more than 300 acres of vineyard, as well as destroying an estimated 250,000 barrels in library stock. In all, it is believed 25 wineries in the state have been directly affected by the fires, with the damage ranging from destroyed vineyards and bottles to destroyed homes. It's a horrible situation there. We see this, and this is going to affect the crop this whole year. Many wineries won't be able to produce. There'll be smoke taint. Everything we seem to deal with up in Northern California all the time. Napa is constantly dealing with this. We can call it what it is, but anyway, just unfortunate. And, just brings home, again, how difficult it is to make wine. You are a farmer, and then you have to harvest that crop, and then you are the producer of the product that comes from that crop. So anyway, thoughts with the people down in Victoria. And with that, let's get to our wine and winery of the week. Well, here's a crazy one for you. Sparacia Witherell Family Winery and Vineyards. This is in Florida. It's in Brooksville. And actually in Brooksville also, I've talked about that restaurant, Prime 88, which is there, which is a great steakhouse. But this is a Florida winery focused on the muscadine wines. It's not for me. I'll just tell you. We went there, but it is a beautiful vineyard. It is a beautiful tasting room. And we did kind of go through some of the wines, and it's just one of those things where, look, there's so much to choose from, and there's so much you can drink these days. And but for some people it works. And, the way they kind of really work is if you make kind of an off-dry wine or even a sweet wine out of it, not bad. It's workable for people that like that. I will give them credit, though. They had such a beautiful tasting room and such a beautiful setting, and they had bands, and the hospitality was amazing. But I've never seen a winery where they also have an entire retail space where you can buy other wines. So I think we grabbed Bordeaux and they had Napa wine. So you're like, well, I like this. I'm not a big fan of the kind of wines you can produce here in Florida, but you know what? I do like your winery. So I'm going to grab a nice bottle of wine from your little retail store on premise and go out and drink that. And they don't care. They're happy. They're happy that you're there. So if you happen to be in that area and you were ever curious, I will tell you it is a beautiful, beautiful setting, and you are in their vineyards there, and go check it out. It's worth it. And for our wine of the week, going to go to Australia, and we're going to go to Margaret River. So I tell you, this wine came across it. This is the Cullen Diana Madeline red wine, Margaret River 2022, $60 a bottle. You can find it for it online. I think the retail on it is $100. Man, we gave it 95 points. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful Cabernet blend, and it is well worth getting if you could find it. I think I found this this would have been first bottle, is my guess, is where I came across this. Anyway, if you can find it, check it out. Great little Australian wine, and just beautiful, beautiful. And Margaret River is interesting in that most of the cab down there is actually on its own rootstock, so hard to find in the state of phylloxera, where everything's sitting on American rootstock and everything's grafted. So another reason to try it out if you haven't had a kind of own vine kind of wine before. And with that, let's get to our restaurant and corkage of the week. All right, we're going to go to Limoncello Fresh Italian Kitchen. This is on Sahara Avenue here in Las Vegas. It is just down the street from one of our favorite Las Vegas wine bars, Crush Pad. Talked about them before. So it's kind of a nice evening. If you can go to Limoncello and have dinner, then you can literally walk 3, 4, 5 minutes over to Crush Pad and do a tasting or do one of their events. Fantastic. Take an Uber home and be safe. But Chef Eric Gatlin, he leads the kitchen over there. Good stuff. Beautiful setting. Nice surroundings. Good staff. We gave it 5 stars. It's definitely worth going back to, and we have. And their corkage fee is only $35 a bottle. No limit. We actually brought a bottle with us that evening. I think it was Heights. And so there you go. Check out Limoncello Fresh Italian Kitchen off Sahara Avenue in Las Vegas, kind of more towards the Summerlin part of Las Vegas Basin, if you know what I'm talking about. And with that, we're going to wrap up another episode of This Week Uncorked. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we would love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, your favorite podcast app, all that and more. Hey, check out that interview we've got down below with Ian Cobble, and check out his new wine club, The Cobblist. Take care, everybody. Till next week, cheers.